Is a preseason rep more valuable for a coach, a preseason game rep, than a rep that would happen here?
I think you take it all in a relative context. You know, there's a lot of things that certainly guys that don't have a lot of snaps in the NFL, there's more value in the preseason game. I mean, it's a subjective argument because you could make the argument, hey, look, if a guy's going against a player that's probably not going to be there on Sunday, or is he going against a guy that you know is a Grady, you know, how do you measure up? So there's a lot of context. So, I mean, we evaluate them all, and you try to take the big picture into consideration. Same thing about who's going to play Thursday night, where you're at. You know, there's a few guys we held out today. They've had good camps. You know, we've had a real physical camp, and if we had to play a regular season game, the format would be a little bit different. But, you know, those are decisions you have to make. But you would rather have guys you got to pull back than guys you got to push. So, again, just case by case.
Mike Tomlin's been doing this for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Is he a guy that you've kept an eye on from afar
Absolutely.
and just tried to
Absolutely.
see how he does things?
Try to pick his brain a little bit at the league meetings. I think I've been fortunate. There's been a lot of the older coaches that have been great. You know, when I've had questions, whether I've reached out, phone or text, or when you're at some of those league events, and I appreciate those guys. They try to pass some of their wisdom down if you go look for it. And we know how competitive this league is, but yeah, Mike Tomlin is one of the guys I hold in the highest regard. He's been doing it a long time, and even from afar, or friends I've had that have worked with him, I love what he's about, and I appreciate any little wisdom that he's passed down has been helpful to me.
I don't know if you consider this technically the end of camp, or
it basically is after this game.
Yeah. So when you look at it, I know you don't like to compare, but the first two, that first year, I remember it was like the second or the third to last practice, and you were like super heated of like the competitive level. Like from where that first camp was to now, where has been, I guess, the biggest growth, or what you've seen that you're like,
every team is different. But yeah, I mean, yesterday, you go back and look at the tape. It was about as physical as practices I remember up front, but nothing that was, where it didn't get out of control, where there was pushing and shoving going on at the end of plays, where guys were saying, it was what you want from a padded practice and the work we needed to get, and even the quarterbacks feeling a little bit of the pocket, and guys, those reps are invaluable, and when you can practice like that, so that's when you change it up day by day. But yeah, it's just your team's different. But yesterday and really this whole camp, when we've gone on the pads, have been pretty damn physical.
Against the Bengals, Bijan had a couple runs where at the end of the run he kind of gets stood up, held up a little bit, and he's kind of twisting for more yards. Do you ever tell it back to try to avoid those situations where you're trying to gain those extra 1 or 2 yards, or is that not even something you want to put in their heads?
Yeah, we're not going to make them risk averse. You're talking about ball security, whether that's ball can get punched out with. The guys have gotten pretty good at it, in the open field. The guys, there's a lot of different ways, but we're going to fight for extra yards, and certain things in the goal line. Guys reach out on second and third down. We've seen those fumbles and go out of bounds. Those are different situations, but it's hard to get a yard in this league, and we'll fight for every inch.
How come you kind of feel at this point, as you guys head on this last preseason game, now that you finished camp, you feel comfortable about where the team kind of is at this point heading into?
I imagine most people probably feel pretty good. We haven't played any real games yet, but the preseason games have been a good. There's so many different things going on that are different than regular season. So yeah, we feel great, but I'd imagine there's a lot of optimism still around the league. We got to continue. We got plenty of opportunity ahead of us before we kick off September 10th.
Going back to physicality for a second, is this the level of physicality that you envisioned 3 years ago?
Yeah, it's what you want. It's certainly, yeah. But again, it's how you started. Can you sustain that, level of play and through the 4 quarters you kind of have of a regular season? It's one thing to start that way, but can you continue to improve and play that way late in the year?
You said Landman yesterday got hit in the groin, right? Is he just held out?
Lamb will be okay. Not concerned about Landman long term, but like a lot of guys like Drew or Chris, again, there's give and take. We try to be really smart. Again, I always say there's nothing more important than health and safety of our players, certainly in this team. So take it case by case, but Nate's had a good camp, and Nate will be all right.
after a couple of years of data, have you noticed any difference between 17 and 16 game season in terms of physicality and health and managing it?
You know, it's a fine line. It's like a lot of things, and in a lot of industries, you know, there's way more data at our fingertips.
Right.
I mean, even from, I don't want to date all of us here, but when we're in college, I mean, the way that you can research things now, and sometimes you joke that we may be the most technologically advanced society in the history of humankind, but we may be the least informed too. So, like, there's a lot of data you get, and you look at it, and you try to go relative, and you go to historical comparisons and use it. There's a lot of good stuff out there, and you got to make the best judgment. But I don't think you ever stop trying to be curious about it. Like, the question is, it's not being combative, but okay, why did certain guys? How did Walter Payton or Jerry Rice or some of these guys in the '80s that played at a high level and didn't come out? It's the same thing you see in basketball. How did some of these guys play 82 games and the minutes they played and the level they practice? You know, what has changed? Is everybody just automatically bigger, stronger, faster, or is there, you know, and you look at certain industries and the way that people push themselves, and so you're collecting it all. And, you know, you're not doing this whole comparison. Well, back in the day, it used to be so much better. It's like every generation thinks, hey, we used to walk uphill 2 miles. You guys are whatever. I guess to say that is like you take it all in. I'm fascinated by it, but you don't want to stop trying to learn and give context to things.
When it comes to decisions to be made on Tuesday, you said at the start of camp that this is going to be a hard 53-man roster to make. Now, kind of looking back over the last few weeks, did that statement kind of live up to where you guys are right now in terms of those decisions?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and there's been opportunities, and unfortunately, you know, there's been some guys that beating for jobs that got injured, and that's unfortunate. But the new guys came in here, and there's guys that made a really good impression. There'll be a lot of opportunity again Thursday night, and we have a couple of practices to go after that too before we have to make any final decisions. And I mean, where the things change so much, there used to be, you know, depending on your team and the way the organization was structured, but you know, some organizations weren't very transactional. So it's like they had the 53, and it was like, here's your scholarship for the year, and the league is so much transactional. I mean, practice squads are bigger, so there's more job opportunities. You have the standard elevations. So it's just so different. There's not like, certainly there's the initial shock for some guys, you know, nobody ever wants to be rejected, whether you even bring them back on practice squad. So there is a 53 cut, but there's so much more opportunity, and then things can change so much from that initial 53 to the next day to even the weekend going into the game, and as the way you use the elevation. So it's just a different league in that capacity. But there's so many questions you could ask that, like, this cut day is just this final, you know, mark, and it's really kind of a moving target, I guess is the best way to describe it. Yes, you make the initial, but there's so many, and we've made so many transactions too. So it's just not, there's not that, you know, I know I'm going to phrase my words. I was going to be sarcastic here, but like, you know, when people want to put the post on the websites or the social media, here it is, here's your team. It's like, there's a couple things that could change.
Do you think that the perception of like 53-man rosters and how fluid they can be has changed in the last 10 years?
Certainly for us it has, for the Atlanta Falcons, but even in Tennessee there were so many transactions that were made. But I think it's changed more in the last 10 years. I think there were certain teams. I think New England was one off the top of my head. I'm sure I'm leaving somebody out, but they seem to be pretty aggressive transactionally. But there's other teams that it was like there was no movement. And I think the league has gotten more transactional. You even see it in the offseason, the amount of trades, and you know, players change teams so much now.
Taylor Heineke kind of mentioned offhand yesterday there were some long play calls that he had to learn. Do you have any sense of like how complicated the language is for yours for a quarterback, and just how well he's picked up?
No, I mean, it may be long for Taylor, but we weren't going to wristband it. You know, we have a measuring stick, and certainly certain syllables sometimes can get wordy, and depends what offense they've been in. And you know, some guys that try to make it. There's a fine line, but we have a measuring stick in the quarterback room. Taylor's just fine. But
what's the measuring stick?
I'm not going to go on record with it, but Taylor's going to be fine. But I like the fact that he's complaining. It's our job to push Taylor out of his comfort zone. You know, there's certain guys that want to like make you think that they can't handle it. Taylor's a very smart guy. regardless of how he looks on the outside.
Hope I didn't get him in trouble just now. He wasn't complaining.
Did you see what Tua did last week? He read the play call out.
I didn't see.
I had tried to have the media recite the play call back. It could not go.
But that's not really fair if you really think about it. Like,
No,
you
it
guys aren't in
wasn't.
meeting rooms. You haven't taught you that. You haven't walked through it. Like, take a context. Like, yeah, you can make. We can make all of us look stupid. I mean, you could hit me with some kind of like, hey, write this paragraph and edit it for me and make me feel like a moron. And I could sit there and say, hey, give me a grease ball right here. How are you going to pick up this pressure on third down? Oh, really? You know, I'm not going to try to do that to you guys. But because it's not relative. We would have you guys in a meeting room.
Oh, yeah.
We could try it one day. We could do a media mini camp.
I like that.
Sure.
Then we'll go. All right, we'll try it. Pitch it to David.
I mean, D-Led might still be entitled with it, but we'll see.
Well, there's no question he'd take a dive. In warm-ups, he wouldn't make it to warm-ups, and he's taking a dive. His agent would be calling. I've seen that one before. Good.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Thanks,